Monica, welcome to the program.
Glenn, it's so great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. So I want to go right to the deal with Nixon. You worked with Nixon when? How old were you when you worked with Nixon?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to set the record straight, Glenn, because I don't want anybody to think I'm 125 years old.
Right.
No, I was not actually born when President Nixon was elected president, but I did work with him during the last 4 years of his life. So the early to mid 1990s up until he passed away in 1994.
What an amazing thing that had to have been. Did you ever talk to him about the deep state and some of this stuff?
I did, actually. And what's so gratifying for me, Glenn, on a personal level, is I really adored President Nixon. You know, I came to know him as my boss, of course, for 4 years, my first job out of college, but also he served as a grandfather to me. He was a mentor, and he was a very, very dear friend of mine when I was very young, and he was at the end of his life. So I promised him before he passed away that I would take care of his legacy. I said, Mr. President, I pledge to you that I will spend the rest of my life advancing and protecting and defending your legacy. And Glenn, I'll never forget, he looked at me and he kind of smiled in a wry kind of way. And he said, Monica, I appreciate that, but you're going to have much more important things to do in your life and career. And now, of course, here I am working for President Trump. But I pledged it to him. And Glenn, I have literally spent the last 30 years since he did pass away doing exactly that. So now to see these new documents coming out, these new revelations about the truth, about what happened to Richard Nixon and how Watergate was a deep state frame-up of him, is personally very gratifying. I will say that when I worked for him in the early 90s, Glenn, to your question, we did speak about it, but nobody really knew what the deep state was. Now, remember that Richard Nixon served as Dwight Eisenhower's vice president. Eisenhower's farewell address famously warned about the rise of an unaccountable deep state, what he called the military-industrial complex, what we now know as the deep state. Nixon internalized that lesson because he saw Eisenhower, a military man who helped to win World War II and free the West from Nazi oppression. He saw what Eisenhower was going through and the rise of the security state that was unaccountable to anyone. So after World War II, the creation of the CIA, the creation of the NSA, the creation of the DIA, the corruption of the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover. Nixon saw all of this. So when he became president, and this is actually what gave the deep state the context to do what they did, Nixon understood the threat within, but also understood he couldn't bring it to the American people in the late 60s, early 70s. They would go, what are you even talking about? It took the next 50 years for people to wake up. Go ahead.
He also, I mean, what I saw in the documents, he also was very, he did not want to drag the military through the mud. He'd just gone through Vietnam, and he's like, I don't want to do more damage to the military, because the military is important and it's good. So he also was trying to protect the good parts of the military. At least it seems to be that way. For anybody who doesn't know, give us what the documents revealed that maybe the public didn't know before.
Yes. So when Nixon becomes president, he understands what Eisenhower was warning about. So he decides that he is going to consolidate all foreign policy and national security decision-making in the hands of two people, he and his national security advisor at the time, Henry Kissinger, who we later learned was a deep state operative. Okay, so Nixon is getting inputs from one man who he really trusted, who perhaps he should not have. All right, that creates the environment where he is excluding the military, his own State Department, his own Secretary of State. They're all, the CIA, they're all going crazy, Glenn, because he is keeping all of the secrets to himself. The opening to China, détente with the Soviet Union, shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East, all of these huge, peaceful foreign policy initiatives he and Kissinger are keeping close to the vest. That then gives rise to this military spy ring that pops up in the White House to spy on Nixon and Kissinger, rifling through their papers when they go home. You know, when Nixon goes upstairs to go to bed, they come in the middle of the night in the White House, in the Oval Office, in Kissinger's office, in the White House. They're rifling through their papers. They're examining their telephones, everything possible to spy on Nixon. Does that sound familiar? How they spied on President Trump. Yes, because they were all freaking out. The deep state flipped out that they were being excluded. They had no idea what the president was planning, the discussions he was having. And so ultimately, Glenn, and this is what these new papers show, the more Admiral Moore, General Radfield at the time created this military spy ring to spy on Nixon. Yeah. And you know who was a key member of it? Was one Bob Woodward, who was a naval intelligence officer who was read in on this military spy ring, and then through the CIA's Mockingbird media program was planted as a, quote, journalist at the Washington Post, being fed all of the deep state plans to throw it on the front page of the Washington Post to bring down a president.
Wow, I had not heard that. That is shocking.
Shocking. Yeah.
Okay. So Nixon, when he left, the deep state had to consider this a huge victory for them. Did that just embolden them and just keep growing and growing and growing until we get to Trump? And if that's true, Trump didn't know how to fight it last time. He seems to be fighting it really well this time. What's the difference? How is he doing this?
Yes, great question. Let me just go back to Watergate for 1 second, Glenn, because it's a really critical point. The 5 Watergate burglars were apprehended at the DNC site at the Watergate complex, 5 of them, and they were indicted along with 2 others, E. Howard Hunt and G. Gordon Liddy. Of those 7, 6 were linked to the CIA, and the other one was linked to the FBI. So to your bigger point about Nixon's selflessness, which is what these current documents show, Nixon decided not to fight it in the moment because we were still in the Cold War, and he wanted to preserve the integrity and the public's honor of the United States military. So he did not blow the whistle at the time. He fell on his sword for the second time in American history, because the first time was the 1960 election, which was stolen by the Kennedys and by Lyndon Johnson, who was also a deep state operative. It was stolen in 1960. He was presented with concrete evidence on election night, and he said, I am not going to challenge this result because the American people deserve a full-time president who is not under a cloud. Nixon gets no credit for putting the country first, not once, but twice. You talk about what Trump has learned. We talk about Nixon, but it actually, the deep state goes back even further to your favorite president, Woodrow Wilson, Glenn.
Of course.
And the rise of progressivism here in the U.S. and the West. But remember, Woodrow Wilson comes in at the exact same time that you have Vladimir Lenin getting off the train at Finland Station and launching the Russian Revolution. You know this better than anyone. Those 2 tracks to destroy and crush the West gave rise to a globalist transnational deep state. Donald Trump in the first term did not know what he did not know. He had never done any of this before, but he knew that he was targeted. This time around, and you know, God always has plan. So God sent, just as God sent Richard Nixon into the wilderness from 1960 to 1968, when he ran and won again, he sent Donald Trump into the wilderness for 4 years during the Biden years, again, catastrophic for the country. but God had more work to do in both men. And when Donald Trump comes back this time around, he's so much wiser about how Washington works, the deep state here works, but also the globalist deep state. And Glenn, when I tell you, because I was in the Oval Office with him yesterday, this man is dismantling our deep state and the globalist deep state brick by brick. And he's doing it by pulling the funding, pulling their money. We know that they launder money in a couple of different ways. Human trafficking, Trump is putting a stop to that. The drug trade, he's putting a stop to that. Sealing the border. In every direction.
He should look into the art world. He should look into the art world. Just saying. But go ahead.
Good point. No, thank you. Piece by piece.
I can talk to you about that sometime off the air if you'd like. But anyway,
I would love it. I would love it.
Yeah.
So he's cutting off their sources of funding, which are all illicit and very dark: human trafficking, child trafficking, and the drug trade. This is, and another reason why he got Maduro alive is because the drug trafficking trade through our entire hemisphere has funded a lot of these deep state activities. Trump is doing it piece by piece. And he is working with like-minded leaders, like-minded countries. This is why, Glenn, tomorrow my team and I are actually helping to run the first Board of Peace inaugural meeting. And I think we've got about 45 heads of state and others, foreign ministers, maybe more, maybe 60, it's up to now, coming in tomorrow for the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace.
I love this.
Donald Trump is building parallel organizations to the corrupt deep state globalist ones like the UN, like the World Health Organization. In a couple of weeks, we're going to do a Western Hemisphere summit. So what he's doing is building a parallel superstructure of like-minded people who are with him on destroying and smashing the entire corrupt globalist status quo that has actually run the world over the last 70 plus years.
Monica, I have to tell you, he said to me, I hope to be considered like a founder. And he said, my goal is, George Washington was so great. And I'd like to be remembered, in a category like that. And I thought, wow, that's pretty ambitious. I've been watching him, what he's doing to the rest of the world, how he's dismantling this. I think he won't be remembered like Washington, but he is a refounder. He is in a unique category that I would only put a couple of presidents in. What he's done is remarkable, and the American people just don't understand it yet. I know you have to run. Can we touch base on America 250 just quickly?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. And yes, I agree with you. If you look at the big three, Washington founded the nation, Lincoln saved the republic, and Donald Trump is restoring the republic.
Yes.
That's how I look at it, Glenn, the big three. So in terms of America 250, very exciting as we're getting closer to July 4th. We have founded an organization that is nonpartisan, a public-private partnership called Freedom 250. And I know you and your team are working in partnership for your big May 2nd event on Ellis Island. Yep. Incredible. I want everybody to attend that. It's going to be amazing, highlighting legal immigration that helped to build this country.
Legal
immigration. Yes, of course. So freedom250.org is the website. Please go check it out. We are planning the Great American State Fair on the National Mall with all 50 states represented. We are organizing a national prayer event to return the nation as one nation under God, Glenn, and that will be on the National Mall on May 17th. So everybody mark their calendars for that. We've got the big UFC 250 fight on the president's birthday on the South Lawn. That will take place June 14th. We've got your event on May 2nd, of course, and it's going to all culminate on July 4th with a international naval review in the New York Harbor and the Hudson River. We've got about 50 countries sending tall ships as well as modern naval ships, which is going to be incredible. And then there'll be a huge salute to the nation led by the president, including an address to the nation and the biggest fireworks display in the history of the world. After July 4th, by the way, party doesn't end. We've got the FIFA World Cup final 2 weeks later in New York with a big Freedom 250 theme. And then in August, the president just announced an IndyCar Grand Prix race for the first time in Washington, D.C. So Independence Avenue, Constitution Avenue, and so many other streets in D.C. will be turned into an IndyCar 500 race with the president in attendance and about 100,000 spectators. So we want everybody coming out for that. This is going to be a truly national and global celebration. I have every world leader approaching me, Glenn, including some of our tough adversaries who want to help America celebrate. So we are going to have every country on the face of the earth who's willing to do it is going to help us celebrate that entire week leading up to July 4th. Extraordinary.
Monica, you are an amazing, amazing person. And I love having you as the ambassador of protocol, because I know what that means, and you are perfect for the job. So thank you for everything you're doing. My best to you and everybody in the administration. God bless you.
That's so kind. Thank you always for having a big friend.
You got it. You bet. Thank you for thinking for yourself and being part of a movement, because that's really what all of this is. If you want the full story, you want to go deeper, go to blazetv.com/Glenn. Go there right now, sign up, no interruptions, just the truth, uncensored and unfiltered. Don't just watch, take a stand. And I'll see you over there in a minute.